of the Board of Managers for Riley Purgatory Bluff Creek Watershed District to order. The first item that we have, by the way, all of us are here in attendance, all of us board members. Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda, but I do have one change.
Okay,
I have something too.
okay. Go
Do I
ahead.
have a second?
Second.
Okay, the thing I want to change is I want to add, I'm not sure where to add it, Terry, we need to vote on,
Yeah, I was gonna just put that on the March meeting since we'll be,
we need to decide now though, don't we? Because people need to plan the trip up to St. Cloud and
yeah.
in-person meeting.
Is that the one in Wheat Park?
So
Yes,
yeah, so I would just put it as 7 as a new business item. 7E, designate delegates for Minnesota watersheds
special meeting. Yeah.
special meeting, March 21st, 2025.
Okay, that's
So
good.
I still a delegate or do we have to pick delegates?
We need to set delegates. Yeah.
So these are, we had our delegates for 2024.
Right.
These would be potentially the same delegates all year for 2025. But we're trying to move forward the legislative process because our new team of lobbyists said, hey, you know, you're about 6 months behind where you should be in your process. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, one other quick one
Yes.
is pulling off the consent item, this II approved permit for the Bluff 16 culvert.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anybody else have any other changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I do. He doesn't. I'd like to split the under new business adopt 25-014. I want to split that into two. I want to pay the bills, but I don't want to accept the treasurer's. So I don't know whether you want to do a 014A and B or how you want to do it.
Okay, how about if we do that? We'll say A would be accepting the December treasurer's report and B is approving payment of the bills.
That's good.
But President Pedersen, managers, might I suggest B, the accept the treasurer's report, and then C, because C was removed, become the paying of the bills.
Say that again?
So, well, B would be the treasurer's report, and
Okay.
C would be paying of the bills.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Anybody else?
I'd like to make a change
Okay.
to move from the consent agenda, the permit for Hidden Valley redevelopment. That's permit 2024-039. 093.
Yep.
Move that to new business.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other changes?
I second removal of item I.
Okay. Does everybody agree with?
Yes.
Then we just need to have all those who are in favor of the agenda as changed, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Wonderful. Next, we are to matters of public interest. Welcome to our board meeting. Anybody can address the board on any matter of interest. Speakers will be acknowledged by me, and please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. State your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. You could also submit any other items in writing. Generally, we don't take action discussed at this time, but we may refer the matter to staff for a future report or direct the matter be scheduled for a future agenda. Do we have anybody who would like to speak? Yes,
Do I go to a microphone?
I
or-
believe he's
Here we are.
going to hand you one.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Hi, everyone. My name is Rod Fisher. I'm a resident on Duck Lake. My address is 16820 South Shore Lane. Eden Prairie. And managers, Mr. Jeffrey and everyone, I'm really pleased to give you a quick update on our Lake Association and then a question at the end. So we have a relatively new Lake Association, only 2 years old. We just had our second slate of officers elected. I fortunately got to retire as president, but I'm still addressing you as a member of the board, as is Tom Lindquist here on the wall. We've just a quick set of updates. We've worked with and are very happy to say that the FIN program of the DNR, Fishing in the Neighborhood, has now designated Duck Lake as one of their lakes, which means that they will help manage stocking. We're going to, and we've also been working with the city of Eden Prairie so that the north landing on right on Duck Lake Road Trail, north side of Duck Lake, will be developed in a small way in order to make fishing easier with a small set of stones, with some signage and ultimately improvements. So we're really excited about that. We're a very small lake, as you know, but a great neighborhood lake up in the northwest corner of the city. We're very active. We've done social events, a number of them. We do a newsletter, we do a Facebook website, we do cleanup, we do an annual members meeting and social events. So we have a very functioning board, and I feel really proud of the work we've done there. Personally, I'm trying to capture more history of the lake, and I know I've talked to Terry about this a couple times, but I happen to be on the Heritage Preservation Commission of Eden Prairie, so I get to do double duty if I can capture more history of the lake, Duck Lake area. So if anyone knows history of Duck Lake area, let me know. Here's the deal. We'd like to just be able to understand an update of the Duck Lake level, lake level issue, which has of course been before you many times. The best we can understand is that the engineer's report is done. And then we were just questioning, and that's why I'm here, what is the next step in that? And of course, is there anything that we can do to help promote progress there, including, we have a small set of funds that we're willing to contribute. So I don't think I need to reiterate the value of level to process of 25 years of changing the level. We've lost 25% of lake volume, and it shows. So that's something very, very important to us, and it's one of our top priorities as a board. So that's it. I know I'm not on the agenda tonight, or this topic isn't, so I don't expect an answer tonight, but I just wanted to give you an update. And that's all I have. Thank you.
So I have a question. So I know I've talked a little bit with our engineer and Terry, and if we were to say, okay, we talked about this, this is what was basically recommended by Bar Engineering. What if we do it? And the whole railroad thing is an issue, but if we don't go on railroad property and we put in, it might have been me or somebody else said, we just need 2 more of those fishing blocks that the DNR talked about, and you put them in front of the existing outlet with that 1-inch gap in between, and hey, you're done. It's not a very complicated thing, just a couple of blocks of concrete. And one step further would be if the association wanted to just pour, I've made slabs before. I can show them to you in my front, well, you've seen them, my front yard and the whole front porch. You make a form which is lightweight and easy, disposable of it, essentially. And then you put in bags of concrete and mix them up, or bags of cement mix and mix them up, and voila, you have your block right where you want it. So the question I have, is that something the Lake Association would be interested in helping with? And if so, is that something that the watershed could partner with us. And I don't know what permits are needed, but, if there's a watershed permit needed, help walk us through that. And, if there's a city permit needed, help walk us through that.
If that's an option, that's certainly, there's plenty of creativity and horsepower on the board. And as I said, small amount of funds, but we would love it if that option was made available to us. Clearly, we would need the permissions of all the appropriate bodies before we did that kind of work. But yeah, I speak on behalf of the board. I think, say yes, that would be a
So we're looking for an answer. We might not get it, probably won't get it at this meeting,
yes.
but we're looking for an answer from the watershed district. Is that something they would partner with us on? And would it be okay with the city? And does pouring 2 blocks, they're roughly a foot tall, 2 feet wide and 6 feet long each. So they're pretty big blocks, but does the city need a permit for that? Or need us to pull a permit? Because it's, well, the DNR is kind of asking for it. The Finn fishing program coordinator is saying we don't have to put in an aerator because we're getting the level back up. And we're going like, did somebody tell us that? I didn't hear it. We want to, obviously, the engineering response was yes, but then the problem with the railroad was brought up by Eden Prairie, and I've got waders. I can wade in the lake. Yeah.
No, certainly we
We
could
have a-
get that work done without the river.
Question?
I just want to comment, on my understanding of reading the report, the engineering report, I don't believe it was a recommendation of what we should do. It was more of a identification of what would be required to get an equivalent water level in a engineering methodology that is highly, putting a 1-inch essentially hole is a very not good engineering practice. So that you would, so it leads to, you asked what you could do or look at, the city of Eden Prairie has to be willing to maintain something that is prone to clogging, that is not designed well for the circumstance it would be put in. So it's like, that's something you guys could talk to them about. So that would be a roadblock in my mind before the watershed would look into doing this. The railroad, I don't know if that's part of it or not. That was the other. Those are 2 kind of really serious roadblocks we don't have control over.
So just a clarification, my understanding was that's why engineering did not recommend a 1-inch hole. They recommended a V-slot.
Correct. It's the same similar problem though,
Maintenance.
maintenance.
President Pedersen, managers, yes, the proposed solution, the V-notched weir had to be so narrow that it would be logistically difficult to maintain. The city we shared it with the city, and their response was no to maintaining that structure as it was proposed. Yeah, so Manager Nelson is correct. What was provided was, this is the design that would have to be used in order to match that hydrograph that we were looking for. So, it would be up to the board of how they want to proceed with that in mind.
So then the question becomes, will the watershed take responsibility then for the maintenance with a cooperation with the Lake Association that will actually do the maintenance?
President Pedersen, managers, I would caution against the district taking on that obligation for the simple fact that the PCA this year tried to make us an MS4 authority. The reason we aren't is because we don't have any control over outlets from an MS4 regulated water body, and we don't have a storm sewer conveyance system. So before I would say that the district would I would want to verify with the PCA that that would not make us an MS4 authority, which would be a great drain on our resources trying to do that.
So is that an answer you can have by the next meeting or?
I can reach out to the PCA. I don't know when I'll get an answer from them on that, but yes, I can reach out to the people that sent the original letter.
So clearly this needs to be discussed a bit further before we can give you or you an answer on this. And I would say we need to put this back on the agenda again, once we have some clearer answers. Is that all right? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you.
Sure.
I believe, Mr. Cook, you would like to speak.
Yes, please. May I
Proceed.
continue? Thank you. My name's Larry Cook, live at 471 Bighorn Drive, Chanhassen. I'm here, first of all, to object to this meeting on the grounds that the board is not constituted in accordance with Minnesota law, and therefore all actions taken by this board are illegal. And also to make aware of those people dealing with the district that it isn't legally constituted, I think, or may be subjected to particular issues. I won't go into any further. Also, my understanding, you had a workshop prior to the beginning of this meeting. And according to the calendar, in my position, that this body has again violated the open meeting law. So that's with respect to taking this. Wanted to know where the minutes of the two workshops are. I noticed you have minutes of the last meeting, but I didn't see any minutes of the last two workshops, and I'd like to receive those as soon as possible. Also, I'd like to object to, this artwork part of the project up in the northeast part of Lotus Lake. I mean, we have so many issues in this district that we don't need to be spending time on items that basically are not going to be contribute to the benefit of the waters, just like we shouldn't be spending any money on the Noble Hills project, the similar issue. We have plenty of creeks that need repair, and we need lakes that need to be protected, particularly all of the two larger lakes, Riley and Lotus Lake, from phosphorus pollution caused by wake boats and other activities. So I believe we should be addressing that. Also, I'd like to bring up the fact that, as I understand it, St. Hubert's has not paid anything toward the cost share. Perhaps I'm wrong. That's what I read. And if they haven't contributed toward that, I think that's basically a dereliction of duty when I believe the deal was pretty specific that they were supposed to be contributing along the way. If they have been contributing, then maybe the staff report should be clarified and rectified. And finally, you mentioned that, I believe the 2024 legislative session gave the watershed districts the ability to regulate surface water activities. And I would say particularly in connection with any of the other purposes for which the watershed can act. And I bring this up this time because there's discussion about working on rules or coming up with amendments to the rules. And if that's the case, I would recommend that they certainly look at amending the rules to address surface water activities that result in excess pollution to our lakes, particularly addition of phosphorus. And in particular, I'm looking at the use of wake boats. And I believe there's still supposed to be final study out of the U of M yet hopefully this spring, that will clarify this. But my understanding is from sources that the U of M's report will show that such wake boat activities should be limited to basically at least 1,500 feet wide areas of a lake and at least 25 feet in depth, but we'll have to wait for sure for the report.
I believe that concludes your 3 minutes, Mr. Cook.
Well, Thank you. I'm finished, but I note that you took in excess of 10 minutes to address the comments by the people from Duck Lake. So, but at any rate, I am finished at this point. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments? If not, I do have a statement to read, which is, for the past few meetings of the Board of Managers, Mr. Larry Cook has appeared during the public comment period and asserted that our meetings were, quote, illegal, unquote, and that managers Nelson and Crafton had not been lawfully appointed by the Carver and Hennepin County Commissioners. Mr. Cook filed a lawsuit in Hennepin County District Court claiming that the counties had not followed the law in appointing managers Nelson and Crafton, and that he was entitled to a, quote, veteran's preference, unquote, in the appointment process, and that he should have been reappointed to the board. The district contested these claims, as did Carver and Hennepin counties, and on January 29th, Judge Joseph Klein dismissed all of Mr. Cook's claims, finding that they had no legal basis. I regret that the district had to incur substantial legal fees to respond to Mr. Cook's lawsuit, and am pleased that the court dismissed it. Thank you. I believe we're on to reading and approval of the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 8th regular meeting, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. Next, committee and member reports. We will adopt the resolution at the end for receiving all the reports. So our first report is the Citizens Advisory Committee report. Mr. Aller is here representing the CAC today. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, okay, just sit down real quick. We met on January 27th, 2025, and welcomed our new members. Manager DeVell was present, as well as Administrator Jeffrey. We went through and collected our city water conservation and projection reports that were done by the CAC members. What they did was they contacted the different cities, looked into their websites to find out what the cities were doing. And those cities were Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Chanhassen, and Bloomington. A shout out to Dave Paulson, who is an ex-CAC member who had to leave the committee for personal reasons this year. However, he came back to complete his project. I think that shows that the Board of Managers is doing a great job in selecting people for the CAC that have the type of commitment to come back, even when they're not presently sitting, to complete projects that were started. So I think that shows a great foresight on your part as you're looking at individuals who are coming onto the CAC. Our next CAC meeting will be February 24th. That will be our organizational meeting. And then we will focus on the 10-year plan, and we will be reviewing the goals and strategies as set forth by the board. And we're looking forward to working with the manager and the administrator and work towards the construction of the rules as you go through them this year. And with that, any questions?
Any questions?
Otherwise, thank you for your support.
Thank you. Next, does the Audit and Finance Committee have anything additional to say? Otherwise, any questions?
I think we covered that in our workshop. Don't really have anything else to add, do you?
I thought we covered it through.
Great. January Administrator Report.
President Pedersen, managers, so real quickly, just two items. The first one we've already put on the agenda, so I won't go into that, but that's a special meeting for Minnesota Watersheds on March 21st as they're reviewing their process for putting forward resolutions. And then the second one that I would like to talk about is just a quick update on progress on the fluoride initiative. Councilor Welch is meeting with the other groups that were involved in it, the landscapers, the litigation lawyers. Eco can be there. and other watershed representatives to see if they can come to a compromise. He will have a full report at the 19th and 20th at the legislative. That is all. Oh, and one more thing, I met with David Drell Associates today. They had some questions about a few of the job descriptions. Questions about if the comparables that they were using were acceptable. They provided you with their spreadsheets and the ones that they uncategorized and asked if anyone could be categorized into it. So I have a meeting with them next Tuesday where they are going to be finalizing their results.
Great. And as long as we're on the administrator, you board of managers should have received the performance review report. And I'm asking for that to be turned back into me by the end of February, and we will be doing the review in March. So,
We still need to get an email with documents. Yeah, okay.
so Terry knows he needs to send that out, as well as any changes to the job description for the job itself.
Get a promotion.
Any other questions of the administrator? Hearing none. Any questions about the staff report, the engineer's report, or the regulatory report? Yes, Bunny.
I had a question about the staff report. I think the lake vegetation report seemed like the item for the aquatic herbicide applications that we were letting out bids. And I know that some of the homeowners associations or people who do individual applications were wondering if they'd get information on coordinating with a watershed, if they should do it, if they need to do their own.
So President Pedersen, Manager Nelson, statement will be going to the association. I wanted to verify with legal what I was sending wasn't getting us into any type of liability. What we would ask is that because last year's application was a systemic herbicide, and it's only the second time we've used it on any water body within the district, we would like to see, be able to evaluate its efficacy. So the less individual homeowners treat their own shoreline, better that will be for introduction of variables. But of course, we can't say, do not treat your shoreline. So if residents still want to treat their own shorelines, they can. So,
Is it hoped, I don't know where you want to draw the line there, that it will continue to be effective this season?
I will defer that to staff. Maxwell, there's always going to be a rebound in vegetation every year. That's part of it, is we really want to see to what extent it is effective. I don't know if
Yeah.
starring
I
was
can,
super effective, but
yeah, starring it was 3 years before we started picking up individual Eurasian water milfoil plants. Obviously, starring is a lot different than Lotus Lake, but Floridone has been pretty successful in other lakes across Minnesota as well. So
Then a follow-up question, maybe this is more of a 10-year plan thing, but if it is considered effective for, say, 3 years, is that something that we would continue considering full lake treatments?
was Pedersen, Manager Nelson, yes, because at that point it would become a more cost-effective treatment approach than others. Now, I'm going to look to Staff Maxwell again. I believe we have to get a variance to use Floridone. Is that correct?
yeah, when you conduct a full lake or a whole lake treatment, you need a variance and a vegetation management plan, or at least an okay from the DNR to say, yeah, you can go ahead. So they would not approve a whole lake treatment, consecutively for forever, if that's the question. So
So it would be a preferred approach because it would be more cost-effective, but there would be conditions put upon it by the DNR.
The information about Starring Lake, I would find informative as a homeowner deciding if I was going to move ahead with treatment or not. That don't know what you're planning to say, but that's sounds.
Again, the staff maximum, it's not quite apples to apples, just because.
I understand, but just as a, thank you.
Yes.
So, so that treatment, is that one of those that if it's done early like that, that then it doesn't cause harm to the native plants that might be coming after? Kind of like with the curly leaf, hitting that early?
Yeah, Floridone's applied, the major dose is applied really early. And then there's up to 3 additional bump treatments to keep the concentration levels at the rate that it's needed. But they're lesser doses, and it's such a small amount of herbicide, and compared to some of these other herbicides as well, the amount you're applying is less overall too. So
This damage. Okay, I had one other questions about the, I don't know if Zach's on, but I wanted to learn a little bit more about the residential lawn project that Rachel and Zach are working on.
President Pedersen, managers, at this point, they're just trying to develop it. Is there a way to take, so, if you remember, 9 Mile was doing soil testing for residences. That was just kind of, here's what's in your lawn. Is there a way to expand that program to give additional management approaches for them, for their lawn, beyond just what are you depleted of phosphorus or nitrogen? So there's a way to
Enhance.
improve your till, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Okay.
Any other questions on the final 3 reports? Yes.
Let's go
You
ahead.
can go next. Had a question on the engineering report.
Well, I'm still on the staff.
Oh, go,
report.
then you go next.
So I've got a number of questions on the staff report. Just go through my notes here on regulatory reform. Sounds like we're considering, or staff and engineers have been reviewing changes to the rules potentially coming up and to be considered before the TAC group before with further vetting and bring it to us. And I'm just, question I have on that is, are you reviewing the past permits and in particular looking at the variances that we've had in terms of how that overlays update to the rules?
President Pedersen, managers, we're always thinking of past permits because that's what really motivates most of our changes with the permit program. Yesterday, myself, Engineer Sobiak, and Council Welch met and discussed, we are setting a meeting to begin to evaluate and parse the rules. One of the things that I think we will want to do is bring back very specific permits to the board, walk through the process that got there in an effort so that you can see some of the conflicts that occur, some of the conundrums that occur as we're looking at these. So that's really what we're thinking will be our next approach. We have a few just high level cleanup type of things that we know can be implemented, but as far as how to balance being both flexible yet protective, thank you, is really what we're kind of struggling with right now. So we really need to bring that to the manager and get you guys to weigh in on it and see some of the issues that we're dealing with and why we're like, this isn't just a simple, if we just do this or strike this line or add this line, it's going to all work out.
But you're doing that with the TAC committee, which is municipalities, cities, counties. So is that the kind of framework you're working in? I mean, or are you trying to blend in with what they have, or is it a combination of going back and forth? Because it seems like that's an issue that's come before a lot of permits about the city did this and it doesn't match up with anything that we're doing, but they're sort of in the driver's seat.
Yep. So the way we use the TAC, so especially what I just described here, we'll probably flip it around. We'll come with some ideas, get the manager's input, and then we will take it to the TAC. Because at that point, what they tend to do is they'll point out the ways that it isn't workable or that it conflicts with what they have. And that's when we would start the dialogue of the yeah buts will begin at that point. Perhaps you could, like, for instance, one of the barriers are some of the cities utilize the boulevard area for all of their utilities. So then they say they cannot do infiltration in the boulevards. Well, that comes back to whose problem is that? Is there a way to do a common trench, or is there a way to put those utilities on the road? So those, we tend to have those, I won't call them arguments, and maybe arguments in the true sense, that dialogue, that debate of what's reasonable and what's protective.
Okay. Another,
Go ahead.
I mean, anybody else have questions? They just chime in, right? If they're relating to what we're talking about right now.
If you're on the staff report, I
Yeah,
think she has a
yeah.
question about the
Yeah, yeah.
engineer's report, so.
Okay, so the samples soil health study, is that about ready to go out to those of us that participated from last fall? You were mentioning that
It's a
before.
great question. I will follow up with Staff Dick Ellison and see where he's at with that.
Said it was going to be issued this month, so oh, this is on repair and maintenance fund under the cities. Has there been any further discussion or thoughts on the watershed providing long-term maintenance? Is that
There has not.
okay? And then how about as far as the EHAP and how that works into whatever we're doing?
So-
I see it's finished, but it's just sort of like sitting there.
And that's where it's going to stay while we work through. I wanted to get through our initial missions, vision, value, our goals, and then use the EHAP to frame, which we did at our workshops, to frame our strategies and goals. Then there are specific action items within there, and we can start looking at where would those action items fit into our plan, the 10-year plan.
And so did you and Fred give a presentation to the MPCA
We did,
in January
and that was very well received.
on EHAP?
Yeah, so
What'd you say?
we talked about the need for a systemic approach to it, the fact that we are moving away from an end of pipe approach and looking at before it even starts getting collected in, that the responses that we got, a lot of responses about the limitations or the inefficacy of tree protection ordinances that cities have. That came up a lot throughout the discussion from the people that were there. There was talk on restoring native vegetation and how do we motivate, incentivize individual landowners to move in that direction. We push back that, if there's a way to incorporate it into the MPDS stormwater construction permit, that would be a great place to look at. So that would have to be, to which they said, well, we'd have to put that forward to the federal government because they're the ones that approve the SDS permit. So there was some back and forth on just kind of brainstorming an idea. The takeaway was everybody felt that, yes, we need to start looking in a different direction of how to do it.
Couple more questions and I'm done. On the this is with the WCA and the violations and the Chanhassen TEP meeting. It sounds like with all these violations, we just keep pushing them out there and we can't do anything with them. Is that?
So it's President Pedersen managed to develop. It's one of those, again, where when you have it's the argument for streamlining processes, for having one entity be responsible for all of it. Because we have our set of rules, then we have a WACA restoration order. And then you need to try and get those two to fit together so they could do a restoration of it. It could trigger a bunch of our rules and try and get it. So we don't have authority over the Wetland Conservation Act anywhere except for Shorewood and Deep Haven. So we have to rely on the LGUs to do their thing, a restoration order be issued, and then come to us. So we can say you have to restore this back to that situation, but they also then have to get Bowser and the LGU to approve that restoration plan.
So it doesn't sound like a very effective
It's not.
process.
It's not.
It's-
And if it's a 4-4 water, a water of the state for United States Army Corps of Engineer, then that adds another layer of complexity into it as well. Fortunately, we have not had any violations of that yet. Although, I guess the one on Lake Lucy Road probably would be, because it's a direct conveyance to Lake Lucy.
Which is one of our better ones.
So on the delisting of Lake Riley, it says that we've submitted everything on that.
Submitted everything, we're in a holding pattern. It was a 2-year process, Josh?
Yep, it is a 2-year process.
And so we just, no idea when or. Okay. There was another thing on the PCRA berm and talking about we might need a plan amendment and the cooperation agreement with City of Eden Prairie.
For the what?
Um,
Berm?
Oh, the berm.
Is that,
Next.
okay, that's it. That's all I have.
Anything else on the staff report?
I wanted to follow up on a couple of times. Well, what, so who all did you meet with from PCA? Todd
The
Smith?
PCA, it was a presentation, so they have monthly meetings. They invite everybody throughout the PCA and other organizations that might want to come. So I don't really know who all was there. There was 70-some people in the audience.
Okay. I'll have to talk to Katrina. So one piece that we've kind of been battering around here is the importance of partnerships, because the rules just aren't getting us everywhere we need to go. So, I mean, I know we had people come and participate in the workshops, but are we doing a decent job of kind of reaching out, especially since like Minnetonka and Bloomington have developed natural resource plans to get a better sense of where they are on give and take on any rule changes, or what they see as might be important for help us all have a win-win to get some of those goals?
Yeah, we have not had any follow-ups with them. I have been reviewing their plans to see where there is overlap. But at this point, I have not been working with them directly as we're going through our planning process.
So I met with Distal and Guido the other day. And there is so I was part of a group that worked with Jack to get the native plant ordinance updated. So they're really focused on doing a whole lot more good stuff. But one of the cost shares that Jack was interested that might be possible, but it would be with Three Rivers Park, and he gave me the name of a person to contact there. But they're trying to bring animals back onto the landscape. So they're put prairie in a whole lot of areas. So if they bring sheep in, they wouldn't have to mow so much. They could graze it. So anyway, there's a place where that golf course was that's part of now what Three Rivers Park is doing. But there's a place in there that Jack said that would be perfect to put the sheep back in. So it sounds like we'd have to reach out to Three Rivers Park, but it sounded like it was a potential cost share project. It would be a good research project for what we're doing with soil health stuff to then see what the benefits of what they're trying to do there would be.
Yeah.
So I guess Zach is the person I should talk to, but
I can
wanted to
call
get that
Jack.
on your radar.
I'll call Jack tomorrow.
Okay.
Anyway, it sounded like a good project.
Anybody else on the staff report? I think we're up on that. Engineers report, you had a question, Bonnie?
I did. Sort of raised the issue when I looked at the Autumn Woods permit towards the end, and it talked about that the infiltration basins are not functioning as designed. So 87 lot development, Autumn Woods. And so my question is, was this, I guess, were the soil samples representative? I mean, was it compaction during construction? And do you have to like do infiltration tests after construction? So was there a way they should have known and we just had bad data? Have you? I'm not asking this in very clear.
Yeah.
Why did this
President
happen and
Patterson.
could it have been?
Mr. Nelson, this is now the third or fourth time we've run across this.
Yes, it seems to be.
I'll say this is, I think, strong evidence for if there's any indications of clay soils, let's not go down the infiltration path because these are the sites that are having these types of problems. In terms of what happened during construction, they kept the basins completely isolated
Okay.
and offline until most of the upland area had been disturbed and homes built. When they brought them online, they had 2 feet of additional material they had to take out before they got down to the bottom.
they're-
So they weren't compacted. There wasn't sediment that got into them from construction. The first rain came through after they had excavated and they scarcified the bottoms, meaning they roughed up the bottoms to loosen up the soil. The water didn't infiltrate at all. So they're at the point of saying, well, we need to do something because we're not meeting water quality. So they're working on coming up with a solution. They did do infiltration tests out there prior to construction, but it wasn't done at the depth, the bottom of the BMP.
Mm.
So they did it in essentially an egg field, and the topsoil and the top infiltrated decent, not great.
So they
but
did a
decent.
surface level infiltration?
They went down like a foot or two, right? So is it representative?
No.
Probably not. So they they designed it to be a little bit conservative. They cut those rates in half and went that route. But once they excavated down after construction, they're seeing zero infiltration.
So I agree. I'm seeing a pattern, at least in the short time I've been here. So, which brings it to my attention, and knowing what my yard is like, there is no infiltration at all. I live in Chanhassen. So it's just, yeah. And then, so when you come in retroactively, do you have space to do anything? What do you even do? And then do we become a restricted site because we haven't analyzed this properly in the beginning?
So where this project is going is it's going to a restricted site determination. In which case, then they'll do the best they can with whatever area they have for evapotranspiration. It's single family home lots that are already developed, so there won't be any regional area for a reuse system to reuse water. They're looking at trees, some trees and boulevards and so forth. I don't know where that's gonna go when it comes to the city ordinances. And this one is Chaska. They're gonna be retrofitting, the last design I saw, they're looking at retrofitting one of the basins to become a biofiltration basin. 2 of the basins will become essentially stormwater wet ponds.
Mhm.
Now, the challenge they're having with going that route is they're having a hard time meeting the water quality criteria. Because
Because it's not infiltrating.
it's not infiltrating and they're not getting the treatment that they need. So they are going back and forth, and I've had 4 calls with them in the last 2 months with ideas and brainstorming. And
Yeah, I just see another variance coming our way.
well, from the abstraction perspective, it would be restricted site, so that wouldn't be a
Yeah.
variance. And they're pushing uphill a lot because I'm gonna not allow as much as I can. I don't want to bring back a variance from water quality. That's a very scary precedent to set.
President Patterson, Manager Nelson, we have never, ever granted a variance from water quality, ever. So.
So,
Autumn Woods.
So I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So as Bonnie was kind of pointing out, if you did the test at the actual level that the BMP is going to be, so you go down extra deep, whatever you need to, and then do the test, would that give you a heads up that this might not work once it's excavated?
It would give you a much better indication, yes.
So that might be something we'd want to add to the rules.
That is something we do require tests, and it's supposed to be at the depth. But there are instances where they either don't have full property rights to go out and dig a hole. In this instance, they would have to dig a hole 8 feet deep. And that property owner didn't want them to do it at that time. So we said, okay, you have to do it during construction. And if it comes back less than what you assume during design, it's a permit modification that would likely have to come back to the board. Now, and Terry, you and I have talked about the idea of if it's predominantly clay site, similar to the MPCA permit, just don't do infiltration. Now, that also sort of is contradictory to where the board's direction has been in the past of you need to abstract as much water as you can on every site, whatever the case. And EHAP is also promoting keeping water on the landscape. So we really need to be looking at alternative methods of doing that and alternative crediting methods, whether it's tree preservation, dedicating more land to native prairie, instead of the 87 lot development, maybe it's only an 85 lot development because they're putting some of it back into prairie. I don't know. But those are things we need to go and work through as we work through rule revisions.
but Fred said that we can dig down into clay, put in soil organic matter and start adding plants to start developing that ability for infiltration.
That takes years to do that.
We can, and that's so then it gets to, do we say, okay, you have to provide infiltration 5 years down the road or something after establishment, and then, how long do we hold on to security? So that opens up another can of worms.
You're still not getting infiltration, you're getting additional storage capacity. And yeah,
Well, no, I think you eventually get
Yeah.
infiltration.
Yeah.
If you have the deep-rooted plants,
Right.
they make the soil
won't
more
push.
porous.
But it's just not going to happen in a short.
Right, you
Yeah.
can't do it in a 6-month time period.
No.
Well, we mucked it up for a long time. We gotta be a little bit patient.
Okay, any other questions on the engineer's report? Hearing none. The regulatory report, any questions? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2025-012 to receive committee report.
I will make the motion to adopt resolution 2025-012.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion 2025-012 accepting that, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. And now we're looking for a board representative for the February 24th CAC meeting. Anybody want to?
Get to hang out with me.
Oh, go ahead. Doesn't matter.
I can find it.
Okay, Manager Crafton's going to be it. Okay, next we're on to the consent agenda, which only has one item left, which is adopting resolution 25-017, which sets the policy for processing manager per diem claims.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as it is. I think it's resolution 25-013.
017,
17.
right. Because it's just item 3
Oh,
that's
that's
left. Everything else has
I
been.
thought just only do that.
Right,
Which one are we voting here? Consent, right? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It's letter
Consent is
3.
013, but the adoption, the only one left is 017.
Right. I need a second.
A second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this past what we've already talked about at the workshop? Hearing nothing. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. Great. Now we're on to new business. The first item we pulled is the permit 24 -093 Hidden Valley, and I believe that was you, Tom, right?
Yes. So I have a couple questions on it, and hopefully I'm not asking hardcore engineering kinds of questions, because I'm not an engineer, even though I've been around them for a long time. I don't know, Scott, if it would help at all for you to just give just a brief overview, or do you want me to just ask the questions, or?
Whatever pleases the board.
Okay, well,
Why don't you just ask? I think we all.
okay. So the replenishment of the permit fee, so the 2569, is that monies that have been drawn against the fee or the original permit fee that they filed, the $3,000 fee? Is that the way that works?
That's correct.
And so how do we track that internally? And how do you track it?
So the way we track it at Bar Engineering is for every permit that comes in that we're responsible for the review, we set up a line item in our accounting system,
Like you're charging it?
charged to that line item.
Yeah,
And then that line item gets transferred on our invoices to the district. And then it is put into the
MS4.
MS4 database in terms of here's engineering time from this date on this invoice. Staff time also gets tracked.
MS4, is that what's keeping track of this on the project by project basis?
For us to either refund or to tell them they need to replenish, yes.
So that was at the end of January. So we're asking them to bring it back up to 3,000 to renew this permit. Is that the
Correct.
plan? And so is it likelihood that it uses that again, or is that just the way, I mean, it's like a prepaid account kind of, and you keep adding money as
It's a
needed?
prepaid fee deposit.
Prepaid fee.
They add money back in. Now, I doubt that it'll use the additional 3,000 to get through construction, especially for this. It's a small project.
Okay. So then I guess other questions I have relate more to the project itself and looking at, it feels like it's a variation on what Bonnie just talked about and what we did at the last meeting in terms of talking about a development where we're getting pushed into the corner and less options, and we're trying to figure out a way to squeeze what's in the project into the rules. Anyway, I'm curious. So there's the rule J, which talks about the lowest floor has to be greater than 2 feet above the 100-year flood stage, correct?
Correct.
And then, or what is 1 foot over the natural overflow of a water body? What is that?
So if you think of,
In this case, I mean, I kind of know what it is, but in this case,
Trying to,
so in this case, the natural overflow, there's a low point in this site already that acts as a stormwater detention area now because there's a restrictive outlet. That's the primary outlet. The overflow would be anything that exceeds that capacity and spills onto the street.
okay. So can you explain how the HydroCAD system works to develop all these different variations?
President Pedersen?
Question.
I mean, just in the sense of, I mean, these are the measurements on which we're deciding whether or not they meet the rules. I'm just curious as to how that system works. It's given.
President Pedersen, managers, one of the things Engineer Sobek and I have talked about is coming back to this body with a hydrology 101 class, everything from live storage to dead storage to conveyance systems to how we review it. It isn't a simple answer. We
Okay.
couldn't do it in 5 minutes.
Okay. So part of the permit process, they're filling in 110 cubic foot hole from something that they're doing on the site, and then they're gonna dig a 210 foot cubic or cubic foot hole to replace what they're filling in. And again, it relates to the floodplain management and drainage, Rule B. So in the part of the document, it says that there was a 99 foot or 99 cubic foot enhancement of the site. But then in the notes, it says that the modeling showed it came down to like 35 cubic feet.
So managers, what they've done is they've computed storage two different ways. One way, they've used their AutoCAD system to compute storage, and they have a surface, a theoretical surface in the model. There's so much storage. They've done that for their existing conditions and proposed conditions, and that's how they've come up with the 110 versus like the 210. The other way they've done it is they've done more of a hand computation, and based it off of the LiDAR data. So that's statewide, where they go out and they fly, measure surface elevations, and compared that to their existing conditions or proposed conditions, and that's what's in the model. So I wanted to point out to the managers that there's a discrepancy between these two methods. It's simply both methods show that there is a net increase in floodplain storage, meaning that they are providing the compensatory storage that they are. The exact number is somewhere between that 35 and 99.
It's just a guesstimate. I mean, it's an engineering guesstimate of sorts.
And it's something where we could spend a lot more time going back and forth to get to that number, but the answer's still going to be the same. They meet the criteria.
Right.
So if that had only been 1 foot above, it would still
It would be fine.
it would
Yes.
still be fine. So, okay. I guess the other thing answered in an earlier question. So we're talking about, one fix they're proposing is to do a rain garden in addition to 4 other stormwater runoff areas or 3 other areas. So how does that get worked into a maintenance agreement? And again, the maintenance agreement, is that something that will attach to the property? So you have the developer, and there's going to be 2 homeowners, and will they have attachments to their filing at the county?
Because this is a private development, they will be required to record a maintenance declaration on both of the properties, and that will transfer whenever
Forever.
ownership changes,
Forever?
forever.
Because that's what the agreement says, that they'll maintain these things forever.
Correct.
So how does that work in reality? I'm just curious.
Maintenance for these BMPs
Yeah.
should be 15, 20, or 30 years. And at that point, then the homeowners would need to see if they're functioning. If they're functioning, you keep going. There's an annual inspection that they're supposed to submit to the district to help demonstrate that they're continuing to function. And when they don't function, that's when they need to go in and do the maintenance.
So do we do many of those?
To my knowledge, the district has never done any maintenance per se.
We've
but
never
we
done
do
any
get-
maintenance on any site.
But we require this so regularly?
So they, every fall, will submit, and we probably get 35% compliance, will submit a letter, photographs stating, that it is functioning. This is the maintenance we performed on it throughout the year. And then
Just
the
curious,
response is, thanks.
how far back have we been doing those from a watershed point of view? A long ways, or just recently, or forever?
So 2015, our regulatory program went into effect. 2017, I came in as the regulatory coordinator. It's about 2017 that we started in earnest looking at.
So having been in the real estate business a long time ago, I never saw one of those come up in any kind of an abstract review. Transfer of title never came up, that sort of thing.
They are a relatively new thing that have been done.
That could be a surprise for somebody.
Sure could.
Anyway, once they own it, they're under no obligation generally to maintain it, other than if it breaks or it doesn't work, right?
They must maintain it annually. They must demonstrate that they're maintaining it annually. Typically, what that is an inspection showing that it is functioning right. If they have some manholes or inlets that clog, they have to remove those, remove the debris or vector it out.
We get reports back. Have we gotten reports back on those sort of things?
The board hasn't.
Okay.
At some
Yeah,
point, I want to do my job.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious. So, okay, that's
Okay.
all.
Okay, yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve permit number 2024-093.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I had questions on this project as well that actually bring up more to our infiltration basins and our rules and trying, felt like a good example to ask some of my questions. So 3 of the test pits, they talked about up to 20 inches per hour, basically the infiltration. So we just got straight sand going
In a
through.
couple of them, yes.
Okay,
And the tests were, they did go out and do test pits down at the bottom of
they
the.
did 5 feet below the
Yep, 5
proposed
feet
bottom.
below.
So that was good. And so they're going to be doing soil amendments to help slow it down.
Correct.
So I understand, that's fine. So my question is, I was looking at our rule and a stormwater management that we're really providing for non-degradation of surface water. Do we ever discuss non-degradation of groundwater?
We have not.
So, okay. You always give me a look. when
We,
you-
the district did have a groundwater rule.
Mm-hmm.
That was Rule I at the time, and that was primarily related to water use.
Okay.
It wasn't about water quality protection.
I was looking, you talked about water quality issues. So this, I mean, the stormwater just comes into these ponds, and if it's going through, depending on what the rate is when we're done, it's essentially, and the groundwater is very close to the bottom of these ponds. We have 3 feet at some of them.
Correct.
So we're not getting any treatment really from the soil.
The minimum depth is 3 feet, and that's been found that should provide adequate treatment. Now,
Depending on the soil.
depending on the soils, yes, as you know.
So anyhow, it was just something that since we're moving into this world of groundwater monitoring, and if we're thinking about, because it looks like phosphorus and, total suspended solids are only for what leaves on surface waters. It doesn't apply to what goes through the bottom of the infiltration basin.
No, it does not.
Okay.
We rely on the Minnesota Stormwater Manual and the MPDS permit for our guidance on that.
I will say that is a very interesting question, especially when you start to talk more about chlorides.
Well,
Yes.
okay, this was
Right, impact
so I'm also
on ground.
throwing out the fact that they are putting an in-ground pool there, and our neighbor just changed their pool to a saltwater pool, and when they dump that pool, where does that go on the
Good
site?
question.
And I don't know if the cities here, in like Florida and stuff, they allow them to put the salt water into their sanitary sewers. I don't think that you would get that approval here in Chanhassen. So they're dumping it in a place with the known shallow water, potentially sandy soils. Is that something that we're like, do we get a say in that? Or that you can't make a saltwater pool? I don't know. Those are the issues that raise because of the type of soil and the fact that they also had a pool there.
I think that would be a good question for Mr. Smith. Is that a realm that the district could tip their toe in?
Well, yeah, the short answer is yes. We'd have to go through an extensive rulemaking process.
So there is, I know that there already exists a law that you must, and I don't know the number of days, but before you can drain a pool, you must have left.
It's
it
like
as-
8 days for a chlorine pool or
It'll
whatever.
evaporate, right?
Well, so that,
That doesn't do anything for.
but the
salt
chloride is a
water.
volatile organic chemical, so you
Mhm.
get rid of that. Salt, you don't get rid of.
Since we're keep talking about chloride being a problem, that's something that potentially we have a say that we could consider.
We could consider it. What I would say is we'll need to triple our regulatory staff if we're starting to chase after pools.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
That's
Anything else?
And then the third one, they said because clay soils for one of the ponds they did not test the soil at all in situ because they said there were clay soils there. So does that mean they expect it not to infiltrate at all?
So they hired Braun. Braun made the decision when they were out there not to do the test. The design engineer said, we're going to use the infiltration rate for clay soils that's published in the stormwater manual. And they've designed it based on that. This is an instance where we are requiring that they do an actual test during construction to verify that it'll work at least at that rate. If it doesn't, then they have to modify their BMP.
Okay,
Ready to go?
answer your question.
Question, legal, for Mr. Smith. So when somebody buys property and we've got, maintenance declarations attached to that property, they're given that in the paperwork when they buy? And we hope they read it, or
Yeah.
or how do we? There's no enforcement.
What do you mean enforcement?
There's no way to make sure they understood that they have some obligation
It's
here.
not you're not expecting us to be able to do that.
No,
That's not our
it's
job.
Recorded on their property and
Yeah.
that obligation runs with the property owner.
Come up in a title search.
Okay, I was just wondering if there's something to make sure that they are aware of that when they buy the property. That's all I was thinking.
Yeah.
But that's at the county level, right?
Okay, so I think we've gone through the questions for Hidden Valley. So we need a motion to approve permit 2024-093.
Made by
We have-
Manager
we
Ziegler,
have
seconded by
one.
Manager Duval.
Oh, we already have it. Okay, good. So I guess we're at the point we can vote. All those in favor of approving permit 2024-093, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Next, the permit that
I'll
David
make a
called.
motion to approve or adopt the resolution 25 dash, what this is?
001.
It's
Sorry,
this
I'm
one right
in the
here.
wrong
You pulled
place.
the one about the culvert.
Yeah.
You
I'm-
pulled that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve permit 25 001. I do have a question, but
Okay.
A
Need a-
second.
We got a second, Manager Crafton, and a
So-
question.
the question is, I rode my bike down there and, walked through the culvert. It was nice because it was all frozen or dry, but huge cracks. But I also noticed that maybe 30 feet from the inlet and 30 feet from the outlet, Bluff Creek turned and there was a lot of erosion. And I'm wondering if we can have somebody look at it, contact the city, say, hey, you got people out there, if it were me, I would say that you could put some riprap there and you'd be done. But if we don't want riprap, then it would need to be something else. It's only about, I'm gonna say, less than 4 feet, more than 2 feet of erosion in the bank at the outside of the curves. But it seems like if they're there with all the equipment they need to dig out the whole old culvert and put in a whole new one, they got the equipment there. All they need is a little material.
They are extending their work beyond just the culvert. They will be providing some riprap upstream and downstream. I don't know if it covers the full area that you
I-
saw out there,
I
but
don't think it does.
I know on the downstream side, there's an extensive erosion where there's a tree that had fallen and a creek worked its way around.
Okay, so
And they
maybe-
are
maybe
cutting
it
some of
doesn't.
that bank back and stabilizing there as well.
If we could just have somebody look at it and see is there's more that needs to be done on the upstream side. Because I know it wouldn't rise to the occasion of being an important project if we were doing it all by itself. But, the cost for a little bit of material and some labor to do it now seems like it might be beneficial enough to meet our criteria.
Okay, I think you've heard that, correct?
Yep.
Okay, looks like we may vote on this. Any other questions? I don't see any others. So all those in favor of approving permit 2025-001, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. And now we are on to adopting the resolutions for the December treasurer's report and approving payment of the bills. So we sort of had split this into 25-014B, which is accepting the December treasurer's report. So may I hear a motion for that?
I move to adopt it. 25014.
B is accepting.
Yeah, accepting the December treasurer's report.
Right.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions before we vote on this? Comments? None? All those in favor of accepting the December treasurer's report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, what am I supposed to say?
That works.
Nay.
But you didn't want to adopt it, or you did?
Pardon?
She didn't want to adopt it, I believe, because she doesn't feel that there are enough checks in there and balances. Am I correct? You're
Yes.
voting against it.
I wasn't
Right, so she's
sure,
voting
but I
nay.
knew, understood all the information.
Right. Okay, next I need a motion to approve payment of the bills.
I move to approve paying the bills.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving payment of the bills, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. We had the resolution about the stewardship cost share policy removed for March meeting. Next, we are on the advice of council to authorize the administrator to enter into the agreement with the stipulation that Terry added in the email this afternoon, late afternoon, which I believe had MaxCore as a sub. Am I correct about this?
That is correct, yes, because the way our general contract is currently set up, we don't allow for subcontractors. Gita and Max Crosby are not incorporated to our knowledge, so we would set up the contract so that it would be with Gita, and she would then subcontract to Max Crosby. Max Crosby is the fabricator, she is the designer.
So I'm looking for a motion to adopt this resolution.
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 25-016.
I hear a second. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So this is for the preliminary design phase, is that correct?
That is correct, President Pedersen, Manager DeVal. This would be only to work with the design team to come up with concepts. It would be our, then the next step would be to take these concepts, go before some type of a review committee that would involve members of the city of Chanhassen, members of the public, members of this board, CAC, and then order a project that would involve that.
So we're authorizing $8,000 for this contract,
That's correct.
and that's our part, or is the city of Chan, are they involved?
That's our part. $8,000 is us.
For the full project? So what voice do they have in it? Because it sounded like they have a approval process at some point, or city council?
President Pedersen, Manager DeBella, yes, we have not. Jerry Rugemer, who is the park superintendent, has been on vacation. So we have not discussed how that would work out yet. But because it is the city's park, our initial comments and conversations with them where they were concerned about long-term maintenance, which was one of the reasons that one of the 5 metrics of selection was that they could demonstrate that they can build it out of durable materials that would not require regular maintenance.
Is that their only concern, or what, do they have any say, I guess, in the final project, I guess, is my
Yes.
question.
President Pedersen, Manager Bell, yes, all of our partners always have say throughout it, and that's what the cooperative agreement will spell out. We work out a cooperative agreement with them. Since it's going to be in their park, and how we work our cooperative agreements with our partners is that we pay the upfront cost, but they are responsible for the long-term maintenance of it.
Do we have a notion as to what the ultimate cost would be?
Looking at the overall project or
The
the
overall
art,
project,
No, at this time, because, well, what was our concept for phase two was like 800?
Yeah, it's just shy of 1 million, I think.
Yeah, so about $1 million.
Okay.
To take that to the next question that perhaps you're about to ask. So how this would work is this is a project that the district would be doing anyway, not, maybe not with all of the enhancements, although I would think we would. But the city is looking to redo that neighborhood that's immediately,
You drive.
yeah, well, Pleasant View Drive, I don't think that'll ever
That's not
happen.
good.
But
Okay.
they're also looking,
Needs work.
looking to do that, where that dead end street is, that goes right into that driveway and then all of that. They're looking to redo that and they're gonna need credit for it. So what we would do is we would say, all right, we're getting, we're getting this amount, you need this amount, prorate the cost, you pay us that, and you can use those credits for your project. So, and if they don't use any and they do something else somewhere, great. We now have two different things treating an area, but good luck with finding something. So, yeah, the Pleasant View, they're optimistic.
Any other questions about the project? Hearing none. Let's have a vote on approving resolution 25-016. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. We added item E on, which was to designate delegates to the Minnesota Watersheds Waite Park meeting in March to discuss the lobbying efforts.
So March 21st,
Okay,
and they haven't specified a specific time yet.
No, they, not yet, but it's the Park Event Center in St. Cloud, Minnesota.
But
It is 10, it's,
It hasn't been announced, but 10 o'clock is when.
10 o'clock?
Okay. And I'm assuming David has to be there.
They do.
Okay, so I would think he would be a wonderful delegate, since he has to be there. Does anyone else want to attend? We have
I do.
2 delegates, right?
so David,
Okay,
You want to go?
Go ahead.
all right, so we have Manager Crafton and Manager Ziegler as our 2 nominated delegates. Do you need some sort of a resolution?
yes.
Yes.
Do we should probably have an alternate in case one of those two cannot make it.
An alternate.
Okay, great.
And
And
I would think in the motion will include paying per diem and mileage.
Yes.
okay,
So did I make that motion?
you did make that motion.
Okay.
Second, if it wasn't already accepted.
All
Second.
right. Any other questions? None? All those in favor of the motion to have Manager Kraft and Manager Ziegler attend the meeting on March 21st, have a per diem and mileage paid? All those in, yes,
And have
And,
Chevelle as the alternate.
as the alternate. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. Next, discussion items, which is an update on the 2 lawsuits. Yeah.
I don't think we have anything further to report. Managers are all aware of the status of.
Unless somebody has questions.
Yes.
right?
Do we have questions? I'm good.
There's not that much to report. then.
Right,
There's
nothing.
nothing.
Okay, so that's it for that. Next, manager and council reports. Managers, anybody have a report?
So if I may.
Yes.
I attended the Salt Week seminars. I'm not quite sure I got some of all of them because they were overlapping, but they videotaped them, so I was able to get some of those. But the big takeaway I had was the Minnesota DNR, I'm sorry, the Minnesota MPCA, Pollution Control
Agency.
Yeah. Anyway, they have a manual that they put together that for smart salting that is very good. And it has a lot of recommendations for what could be done. And it seems like, we ought to be looking at that and doing everything we can to follow that manual. And I think from the Minnesota watersheds perspective, the same thing, you know, we're trying to do the legislation for salt, limiting the liability, but that's been a real tough one. But the MPCA is kind of saying, well, we made, is it phosphorus or whatever in the fertilizer illegal in the state?
Yeah.
Mhm.
some
Put it
time
in.
ago.
And gee, you know, doesn't that do the same thing if we make it illegal for, you know, people to put rock salt down if they aren't certified by the state? You know, and who's going to argue about that? You know, the certification is not that hard. A lot of the people have done it voluntarily already.
I think the difference is that whoever's selling the product had to take out the phosphorus. But in this case,
It means they'll be selling
there's all these different people that have the ability to put down.
to buy and
rock salt.
sell rock salt. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the exact answer, but it seems like the Pollution Control Agency should be taking the lead on this. And if their manual, it's kind of showing them, they're telling us what we should do. Why don't we listen to them? And
Isn't that manual written by Fortin Consulting? I thought I heard that Fortin Consulting wrote that manual.
Probably worked with them on it.
Yeah. And she's done everything from having a convention on applying salt. And she did that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, a lot of years.
Yeah.
And most of the highway system, like MnDOT was there, all the highway systems.
sure,
were there,
and
this
Minneapolis has
LGUs.
already made a rule.
Yeah.
For Minneapolis, but it's not statewide. And, you know, from a watershed perspective, we'd have to do Eden Prairie, Chanhassen, Minnetonka, and, you know, Shorewood.
Haven.
So, you know, it'd be better if it was statewide for everyone.
Maybe this is one of those deals where when you're going to the lobbying thing in
Yeah.
March, gotta talk to the lobby people about that.
It's like a resolution coming
Yeah, sounds like it.
for statewide, yeah.
Anything else
That's all I have for
for your report? Any other manager reports?
Did you want to report on some stuff?
No.
So I had a really fun talk with Scott Walls at the, well, we ended up Zoom. I was gonna go out to the Shakopee, but from the Mid-Wacaton Sioux. About just trying to get a sense of where they were and what kind of things they were doing. And the interesting part for me was that they're having the same challenges that we're having. So like even just getting kids outside, it's tough for them to do, which I didn't think with that culture, that would be a big deal. But so once we get them out there, it's great. One of the things there he talked about was if we could just get one like parcel or where there's a home to put in native plantings, then and if that can catch on with other people in that same neighborhood, then they could designate that neighborhood as whatever, supporting native plants. But so he was talking about a lot of the same stuff that we were doing, but they're just going to getting started. Also, what he brought up was non-toxic neighborhoods. And there is a program out there. I've talked to a woman who's run that. I can't remember where she is, if she's Colorado or somewhere out west, but she's gotten mayors to sign on to that where they made their cities non-toxic neighborhoods. So to eliminate the pesticides and that stuff. But it was interesting. He was talking about that a little bit too. So, but he did say that, because I said, well, you know, it'd be really nice for us. We're trying to go down this path to more ecosystem resilience, to hear more about your culture. And he said there were a couple speakers he could get for us that could come in and talk about that. So I thought that might be fun. I mean, I told him we're just getting started. We're in infancy with what we're doing, but for me, that would be great to have them come in and talk about their culture and their values with the land and natural resources. So
I'd be in
think
favor.
that'd be fair.
Everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, Bonnie, what do you think? Yeah?
so I'm not sure when we'd want to do it necessarily, but I just thought it'd
I
be,
think we should have CAC there too and
yeah,
make
oh,
it a
definitely,
bigger
yeah.
event. I think it'd be really good.
I think for a number of reasons. One, we're trying to get collaboration on the Spring Road property as well, and
Why don't we have it there? Wouldn't that be great
But do it where?
to have it at the
Spring
Spring Road
tomorrow?
property?
Tomorrow's gonna be.
Oh, yeah. Obviously not tomorrow.
So anyway, but it was just trying to make that connection. When I was at this tribal state relations training in November, they had a panel. That was a really neat one. Better, in some senses, more fun because than the Fond du Lac one, because they had people from the tribes from all over the state that came, and you got to hear more stories and things. But I was surprised at how much they were talking about how they worked with Scott County and different units of government in their area, because what I had heard, they were pretty close tight, but that wasn't the impression I got. Katrina Kessler, Commissioner of PCA, had gone out and visited their cultural center and met with some of them. And so I think it was Steve Albrecht is his name, talked about that and how important that was, how significant that was in meaning to them. So anyway, that between those two, it was just interesting. It was fun to get to talk to them. I met with my own city people, Jack Distel and Brian Greedle, and looking for ways that we could support them, and they were interested with what interest they might have in the direction that we're trying to go. So, and they've been putting in a lot of native plantings, grasses and stuff, different places. So a lot of those are in a good position to be burned, so the maintenance wouldn't be too bad. But they're thinking about bringing in sheep. So I mean, so it was a really good, positive conversation. So that's why I keep thinking we should be connecting more with our cities to talk about if there are areas, projects that would fall in with kind of the direction we're thinking of going, that we should be having those conversations. So anyway, those are the main things, except for the DNR roundtable. That was really good. There were a lot more presentations, like the one with Mike's and his staff from Cunha,
Mhm.
St. Croix. So there's several of those. There was the guy that was Stearns County SWCD, that when Laura was here, she and I think Maya, they did that one program with that guy from, it was the same person, I'm sure, on shoreline restoration and
Oh,
how
yeah.
to do
Came
that.
in and put-
So
yep.
we still should have that out there on our YouTube channel,
Yeah.
maybe, or
Yeah, it
something.
was on YouTube.
But he was really good. But I was, so the Commissioner Stroman started out saying how much of a direct message they got from the citizens, because that environmental natural resources trust fund passed at 77%, and that every county in the state approved it. Some were only 50%, some were more. But it was like a mandate that, yes, we want our natural resources protected. So I think there's a platform for us to move forward. I keep trying to engage them on some of that stuff. And I've been pushing that at Bowser. It's like, well, maybe you should take a look at the land. I mean, if you're in the driftless area, you don't want to be having feedlots, think about that. So, but it was encouraging to hear those changes. And I'm seeing changes that Stroman's making within the DNR, where they're trying to think about things more with partners. It just seems like she's restructuring a little bit, that organization. And then I talked to Liz, I think it was Sherber. She's a new hire. She's working across a lot of the different departments she's for River, but trying to break down the silos within that agency. So that was a really fun conversation with her. So, and then I've been on these webinars and things, these meetings with the Upper Mississippi River Basin Association and the Corps, those things. But Jill Baskey used to work for, well, she was with the Corps, then she went to MCEA, Center for Environmental Advocacy. Then she went back to the Corps, and she's now in charge of the NEST stuff, so which is Navigation and Ecosystem Sustainability Program, something like that. But looking at reaches, because a lot what we've done here in terms of reaches and trying to figure out where they can build in a little more resiliency or some kind of help. So for the ecosystem there. So a lot of encouraging pieces along the way that I've been encountering. And so we talked for almost an hour. She was really good. So anyway, so there's stuff on the river stuff that you wouldn't probably care about, but there's more acceptance of nonprofit organizations, NGOs, and what they want to do and what they want to support. So from one talking to Liz. So I'm just reading that as the DNR making some progress toward breaking down some of those silos and going in a really positive direction. And it might be a time for us to actually move forward with our agenda because there's more concern about natural resources and climate change. So anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you, Joe.
Can I add
Yes.
a comment? So it seems like that might fit in more with the current climate we're in as well. There might be an uptick in community organizations wanting to do this more naturally, just given the rollout of things in the last few weeks.
That water cycle is so key because that's the Earth's atmosphere or our air conditioning.
So can I make one more comment?
Sure.
It's not necessarily a report, but I've got a good friend at is organizing programs at the Marsh, which was bought by the city of Minnetonka about a year ago. And it is like 3 times the amount of memberships that it ever had when Ruth Strickler owned it. Anyway, she organizes monthly programs. They call it First Thursday, and they get a pretty good attendance. And this is from local residents in the city. I'm just wondering if there's some way or anything we would put on to do a presentation on the watershed, on any number of the things that we have. So she'd be willing to put it on the agenda. So they have, I don't know, if you ever look at City Hall, they've got things going on there all the time, but the Marsh has these big meeting rooms. And I've been to a couple of them in the past, and they bring on speakers on various things. And if we wouldn't have some ability to do a presentation on what the watershed is, or maybe do it in conjunction with Minnehaha, maybe both of us or something. Just
Sounds
again,
like a Liz thing.
I'm just throwing it out as an.
Sounds like Liz needs to get involved with that.
And the same thing, we watch Carol Evans Saturday morning program all the time, and they've got growers, nurseries, they're always talking about things. That's a big part of a 2-hour program. It just seems like we should start trying to get a regular spot on there.
Hmm.
Maybe you know.
Well, I've done a few of those kinds of
Yeah,
things before.
But they have, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for, right? Is to get the word out however we get it out.
Uh-huh. Okay, anybody else? Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Legal report. Do we have a legal report? We have no legal report. Okay. Upcoming board topics, strategic planning, that's on there. What are you thinking, Terry?
So I am going to take the goals and strategies that were developed by this body. I'm going to go to the CAC with them next month, and I'm also going to work with my staff with them for that meeting, and then come back to the managers with recommendations or thoughts from the CAC and staff, and hopefully we can hammer out a final version.
We gonna,
Start working on the plan in earnest.
are we gonna do any kind of SWOT analysis? I feel like we're not doing a robust enough job here.
We haven't started doing the planning yet. We're doing the
Didn't
mission.
mention anything yet. I think
Yeah.
it's just still being
Well, you
collected.
said you're gonna take something to the CAC, so that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yep, so I'm taking what we did at our last workshop to the CAC.
Okay.
Get
Okay.
their
Was
input
that
on it.
sent out?
Pardon?
Was a summary of that sent out?
Nothing has been sent out yet. I'm gonna get the input from,
Thought maybe I'd missed something.
nope, you haven't missed anything. Gonna get the input from the staff and the CAC and then bring it back to the managers with their thoughts on it.
Okay, I'm thinking the next item, which is the legislative session, was more about us getting the delegates set up for that, correct?
No, this was actually,
Okay.
that we have the legislative event. Oh, no, this was the delegates and
Right.
this was, the salt thing that Michael is.
And the legislative event is the next item.
Yeah.
And I think people signed up for that.
I've got, right now, I've got Manager Devel, Manager Ziegler, and Manager Crafton signed up for that.
And I got my ticket, thank you.
Good. Did you
And-
get your tickets?
Yeah, I got mine.
Okay, and you should have received yours.
Well, I believe that's it.
So before we say that though, at this legislative event, we talked about trying to organize somehow to get meetings set up with our
Yeah,
legislators. Is there a way to do that, or should I be trying to do that myself? I don't.
the rub is ours are both Democrats and the House isn't there, so we could get Senator Wadzinski, we get the Senate. So Senator Wadzinski, and who took Kelly Morrison's seat? I don't remember.
House members are still meeting in the community.
Are they? Yeah.
They say they are.
Yeah.
Did
They actually may be.
Is it
home.
really a meeting or not?
Did that elect, they had an election that made a difference yet, or?
They're still not going for, the reasons changed a little bit, but they're still not participating because they're afraid the Republicans are gonna kick out the one Democrat that won by a slim margin of in the low teens and 20 plus ballots were thrown away with no explanation.
Oh,
So, the Republicans are not happy about that.
We'll see. I mean, 2 years we'll have another election. Maybe we'll get to work.
Okay, everybody, are we ready to adjourn?
so we need to just make our own reservation.
Yeah, I
Meeting.
thought Jan said something about they sent an invite to everyone already, but it'd probably behoove us to reach out to our individual representatives.
And I think we should.
But I
be
think
both
what
as
she's
parties.
talking about is the
Yeah, the
meeting.
night before that,
the event.
yeah.
But the first time I was involved with it, somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody had set up meetings with all of the legislators that affected our area.
Okay.
It was probably 9 Mile Creek because there's a lot of overlap there.
Reach out to Erica.
Cause I think Grace Butler set up the
Yeah,
appointments that I went to. Yeah, find out if 9 Mile's setting anything up, but I think we need to set up our own. But we should be meeting with both parties. This stuff's
Yeah.
nonpartisan as far as I'm concerned, conservation.
yeah. Especially if you want to get it passed.
Okay, I'm looking for
Well, you could,
Ann Johnson Stewart was who took Kelly Morrison's spot.
who did?
Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thanks.
do I hear a motion?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Thank you all very much.